Good morning. My name is Sorel Ketan. If you're hearing the sound of my voice right now, you are on the Daily Huddle. 50 years from now, if you're streaming it from YouTube, you have the pleasure and honor of being that because my good partner, Giovanni Gonzalez, had a crazy idea about 5 years ago. So, Gio, I acknowledge you as the co-founder of the Daily Huddle, and I am delighted to be in conversations with you, the world, and others. This morning, we have the pleasure of welcoming back to the Daily Huddle Keith Lisenby. And question for the day is, what is an empathetic mindset? Now, I want you to hear this. You want to listen because wherever you are, as long as you're speaking, you're leading. And as a leader who's concerned for being effective, you know that effective communication matters because it strengthens relationships. And relationships matter because organizations, whether it's an organization of one or two, relies on the strength of the relationships that make it up. And Keith is an expert in human behavior. In fact, he's the CEO and owner of Atlas Behavioral Health Consulting. He spent 30 years in the field, and his baby face wouldn't let you know that, but he has been practicing in the field of mental health, both clinical practice and leadership. His focus has been on how to create individual, family, couple, and company transformative change utilizing high emotional intelligence as well as guiding virtues. So we are in the hands of an expert. Keith is not, a guy in the diner about this. And Keith, I'm so excited to have you back, to be in conversation with you, and to be exploring what is an empathetic mindset. Gio's going to jump in every now and then to connect with the conversation with us, but let's begin. I think an appropriate place to begin might be, what is empathy?
Great question to start off with, and I also want to thank you for inviting me back on. Your introduction, I need to send you a check. I need to send you a check because I don't think I can have gotten a better introduction than the one you just gave. So I'm a little bit like, who is that person that you're referring to?
Well, my friend, that person is
is
sitting at your shore.
yeah. So empathy, yes. Empathy is a word that gets thrown around a great deal, but long and short of it, empathy is the ability to understand the perspective emotionally and thinking wise of another person, and then being able to articulate your understanding of the other person back to them.
Mm. I'm a Trekkie, and there's a character on Star Trek Generations. They call her an empath.
Mm-hmm.
And she walks into a room, she senses, she absorbs the feelings and emotions of others, and she can tell if someone's angry, if someone's sad, if someone's going to trick you. So empathy in leading and in relationships is critical. Now, the way you created empathy now isn't necessarily like being an empath, because most human beings aren't. So, how does one arrive at understanding another's feelings and emotions? And how can one trust one's understanding and then give it back to another to demonstrate empathy?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that in one very clear word, and that word is curiosity.
Mm,
Being curious about the other person or persons that you are interacting with and listening to them, really truly listening with the idea of understanding.
yeah.
A lot of people go into conversations with this idea of listening to reply to the person that they're interacting with. And that happens in most many different settings of interaction, and even in conflicts where people are really only listening to reply to whatever the person has said. But when we're trying to be intentionally empathetic, we're genuinely trying to be curious, and we're listening to understand.
Hmm. So you're starting to peel the onion and reveal the empathetic mindset. So let's dive into that question directly. What
Mhm.
is an empathetic mindset?
Well, first, let's talk about the idea of what mindset is in the first place. Now, mindset, that can take on many different definitions and concepts. But in this context, what I'm referring to is mindset being the idea of really, you know, with intentionality and with an
Mm-hmm.
attitude towards, some goal or some idea or some concept. So mindset is, I'm being intentional and I have the attitude towards whatever that aim is. So some people have a change mindset where they
Mm-hmm.
intentionally have a attitude of wanting to initiate change, and they're intentional and consciously intentional about the idea of change. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where that mindset comes from. So mindset being I'm intentional and I have the attitude towards that specific aim.
So in the context of this question, mindset points to my willingness
Mhm.
and intentionality to being empathetic, even if I don't know how to be.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
So then expand that for us. So, what is an empathetic mindset?
So if we have the mindset of, having the attitude and the intention towards a specific aim, and so empathetic mindset is the idea of I am going to, with intention and with the proper attitude, I'm going to do whatever I can to be empathetic, communicate empathy towards others, with an attempt to have the best collaborative conversation, interaction, work, partnerships, whatever they may be, moving starting now and into the future.
Yeah, I got that. And what that brings to mind, Keith, is that having an empathetic mindset and being empathetic, we could talk about it and we could create a conceptual understanding of it. And I think what can make a difference for the listeners is to actually get a real sense of what it looks like to exercise having an empathetic mindset. Uh, Maybe we can role play a little bit.
Okay, we can do that.
So you're the one with the intention to being empathetic, and I'm
Hmm.
the disgruntled employee
Hmm.
or the unsatisfied customer
Hmm.
comes. Uh, Keith, man, whatever that was delivered to me last week was just the worst. I can't tell you. I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I am.
Feels like you're really dissatisfied about the product that was delivered to you. What else
Yeah,
can you tell
yeah.
me about it?
You want me to tell you about it? You
Hmm.
want to hear the whole
Please,
thing, right?
the whole thing, the
Yeah,
whole
I got
thing.
that. Well, I ordered uh, a set of tools, and I was expecting three, and
Three.
only two showed up, and the two that showed up were the wrong size and the wrong class. And I paid my money already.
You paid your money. You had sounds like you were. you were expecting something and you didn't get what you expected, and that feels very disappointing.
Yeah. And I want you to fix it.
Fix it. Yeah. How can we help each other fix this?
Well, first of all, I'd like a full refund immediately.
A full refund.
And
Okay.
second, I'd love for you to ship the exact order I had uh,
Hmm.
overnight.
So it sounds like you would be satisfied if we were able to refund the money and also send you another shipment of what you ordered that is correct.
That is exactly it. So now we role played for a little bit, and
Hmm.
I imagine there are certain steps you're going through with
Hmm.
intention,
Hmm.
being empathetic, and with an attitude, right? Can you peel those steps for us? And Gio has a question that helps create this next step. And Gio's question is, what are the benefits of being empathetic and how it helps to become, to show up as a decisive leader rather than maybe insecure?
Well,
So
the
build
val
the steps for us, and then we'll go back to Gio's
okay.
question. That's in the background. What were
Well,
the
the main
steps you were going through to demonstrate your attitude and your willingness, your empathetic mindset?
So the first step was, getting a very quick read on what is the issue at hand. What is going on? What is happening? What is this call about? What is this meeting about? What is the problem? What is the concern? What's happening? And so being curious, first step is being curious about having the person
Mm-hmm.
begin to tell a story of
Mm-hmm.
what they're coming in with. How did we get here today? What's happening? That's step number one. Then step number two, and these are not in any particular order.
Order. Yeah.
It just kind of, you got to go with the flow of the conversation. So, but in this context, it's like key is what's the problem? And really listen to the problem, ask questions about the problem. Two, is I want to get a quick read on what you're feeling. I want to get a quick read on what you're thinking. And I may do that by looking at your body language. I may do that by seeing the level of eye contact, your voice, what's happening, what you're saying. And I'm going to do a read and I'm going to read like, hey, what is this person experiencing? And then with that, I'm going to want to try to, and what people will call a label, like labeling the emotion, the experience that that person that I'm interacting with is having. So when I said it, sounds like you're really dissatisfied, really frustrated with the fact you didn't get what you expected when you expected it. I'm trying to get at, yeah, you're frustrated with that. All right. And then the third is continue to ask more questions on how do we fix it? How can we work together to fix this issue, concern, worry that we're having?
So, in a way, the empathetic mindset rests heavily on what you mentioned earlier, curiosity. So,
Hmm.
it's could we say that being empathetic, having an empathetic mindset, is to continually in a conversation, in an interaction with anyone, to continually be curious and let that curiosity guide me.
Absolutely. People love to tell a story. People love to hear stories and people love to tell their story. And and the goal part of being empathetic and having that mindset of doing so is getting someone to tell their story and encouraging them to
Mm,
continue to tell the story so that you get a better and better and better understanding of their experience and then be able to articulate it back to them. But you have to be really intentional about doing so and have the attitude of being curious and that I want to understand.
yeah. And And I think what you've done so far in the conversation is create for us what it looks like to practice having an empathetic mindset, which creates an access to being empathetic. So let's dig into some of the questions Giovanni asked. Let's start with the first. So, what are the benefits of being empathetic for a leader, a business owner?
Well, the biggest one is making those connections with people as a leader, as a salesperson, as a partner, as a friend. All of those things is the idea of if you're empathetic and you're able to understand and articulate the perspective of another person, then that builds connection.
Mm,
That connection leads to collaboration, not just in the short term, but in the long term, which is what I think everybody is going for, is having long-term collaborations, whatever they are, personal, business, or otherwise, that not just last 2 weeks or 2 minutes, but 2 years, 20 years, even depending. And you want to have that connection. And that's where empathy comes in.
so empathy builds, helps to build the connections necessary to strengthen relationships over time.
Mhm. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Pause for a moment and let's bring Chase in. Chase, you've got a question or a comment. Go ahead, sir.
Grand Date, this is a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. My question is it possible over time, if you are empathetic or an empath, that you can get to the point where it may be that you're concentrating so much on how other people feel that actually you are unable over time to articulate how you feel to other people because you're waiting and you're being gentle with others. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a very thank you, Chase, for that question because it's an excellent question that goes to the heart of human interactions. Period. Where, yeah, and it goes to the idea that if maybe if sometimes we can be possibly too empathetic to the point of going into sympathy or pity or things like that, which we want to stay away from. And so the idea of being empathetic is all I'm doing is I'm trying to understand the perspective of the other. I'm trying to understand their emotions, their thought patterns, their thinking about a given situation. And meanwhile, one of the key steps, and I would love to elaborate on it, but we don't have time today.
Right, right,
But
right,
one of the
right,
key steps of that is to really be recognizing like what's going on inside of you.
right.
You know, your own self-awareness in the moment is giving you tons of clues on what's happening and being mindful of that. But I will say this is that when we are empathetic with someone, we're not being sympathetic. Those are different.
Ah, good
And
point.
and being empathetic does not mean you agree with the perspective of that other person.
Right.
And
Yes.
Chase, you're pointing to what Gio's asking. You talked about being kind and being nice in a way. And what Gio's pointing to is could being empathetic be misconstrued as being soft? And if a leader has the empathetic mindset, how do you exercise that without appearing insecure and soft, but rather as a decisive leader?
Well, and it makes it easier when you are empathetic to someone's situation to actually be able to have the difficult conversation, to be able to set boundaries with people and actually to say no. You can use very empathetic responses to people or statements to people that lead up to, frankly, needing to say no, that this doesn't work for you. And you can set that up by being empathetic as a starting point that then builds the connection that gives you, dare I say, the credit with that person to then be able to then set boundaries and say no when you absolutely need to, because we all need to do those things from time to time.
So, in a nutshell, being empathetic doesn't require being soft, quote unquote. It
No,
actually creates the space where one can be firm and direct without offending or disrespecting or belittling others.
that's absolutely correct. Because we are understanding the other person's perspective and we are understanding it, we're articulating back to them. What that does is, well, let's take a look at it this way. Let me just ask you a question here.
Mhm.
If you do not feel like your ideas and your thoughts about your perspective is being understood or heard by the other person, how open are you to listen to the other person's perspective
Mm.
in the interaction?
That's a perfect question to segue into bringing Giovanni in, because one of the things that Giovanni and I love to say is that people may do crazy things when they don't have the experience of being heard.
Mm-hmm.
So, in answer to your question, I wouldn't be so open. I'd be defensive.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Gio, good
And
morning.
Good morning. I think this is a really important conversation um, that that I find really important to continue to open up. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Keith, on if you will, on your thoughts on this. One of the things that I see happening now in the marketplace a lot is that there is a somewhat of a transition in leadership style, dominating, if you will, cascading across the nation
mhm,
around the possibility that a leader is, and it's getting very foggy, uh, very foggy for people to see effective leadership with decisive leadership, with just being a jerk and bullying, with the whole thing is becoming leadership. And so it's quite concerning for me, someone who's in the field of leadership development, if you will, and communication. It's quite concerning for me to see that this, if you will, for simplicity, I'm going to say it this way: this alpha style of leadership
mhm,
being the popular, if you will, uh, the popular style that is sort
mhm,
of becoming and is highly ineffective at the work environment.
mhm,
And yet it is becoming popular because this soft, empathetic, listening, active listening. It occurs from a lot of men like, dude, you need a beer and some wings and get laid, man. Like, what the hell? And so, as a society, we're becoming quite confused in the world of effective leadership, if you will, in these two energies or styles that are kind of showing up in a very confusing way. What do you? I know I just threw a lot, but I love
mhm.
to, since you're in the field of empathetic listening and speaking, and everything you're saying is quite on point for me. What are your thoughts on everything that's happening?
Well, my first thought that comes to my mind is we're losing our empathy. I feel like that we're losing for a lot of different reasons. We're losing overall the idea that people need to listen to other people's perspectives. I was thinking very similar type of question, Giovanni, before this talk today, where are we at in the world of business, and where are we at in the world of culture and politics, and everything has gone down to just like sort of micro level of time where people don't have a lot of time, and time is an incredibly important thing of value, and so people are not taking the time to listen and understand. And then there's a lot of people out there who are hurting. I mean, there are a lot of people who are truly hurting in all areas where they don't feel heard. They don't feel understood. They don't feel like anyone is listening to them. And so when people don't feel heard and listened, as you mentioned earlier, and in basis of the question I had earlier, is then they start escalating. They become more aggressive. They become they stop being assertive, and then they become more aggressive. They talk louder. They start pounding their fist on the table and saying, well, we're going to get this done no matter what. I don't care what anyone else says. Deep inside, I feel like those people don't feel heard or understood, and they escalate and escalate and escalate. The more they escalate, the less they listen. The less they listen, the more they escalate, and it just goes in a spiral.
And in that
I,
spiral,
I was going to say something. Sorry, I love
yeah,
what
go
Keith
ahead,
is
Gio.
saying. I love the way Keith is saying it in the context of anyone, whether I agree or disagree with them, whether I like their position or I don't like their position, anyone who has the experience of not being heard, uh, it is more likely to escalate an issue, become a real problem for the business, for the family, for the corporation, for the country, than taking on this strategic. I find it very strategic to be empathetic. This is strategic mindset of let me hear what the hell matters to you. Because absent of me hearing what matters to you, we're going to go in this downward spiral of conflict and resources around this conflict. Or might as well just let me hear what you have to say, as a powerful position to come from rather than a soft, weak position to come from. It's like a powerful position to come from is to listen to you. So I'm going to hear you. This is what I'm hearing, kid. I'm kind of passionate about it, and it comes out wrong.
I see that. Yeah. Yeah.
And Gio, this
you
is
look
cool.
like this is really energizing you.
Well, I'm mostly energetic too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Gio, this is real cool because what you've just demonstrated is being empathetic is being powerful. Not only did you say it, you were being it, you were demonstrating it. So to the world out there, the message from Keith is force may work in the short run, but real power comes from being empathetic. And that lasts for a long time. Keith, guess who has a question? Veronica.
Veronica.
Veronica asked, how do we protect ourselves from getting dragged into the emotions the other persons have, such as anger, sadness, and so forth?
It goes back to one of the things I said, mentioned earlier, is, people are going to come at us with all sorts of different states of emotion. They may be very angry, they may be very sad, they may be feeling very happy. And one of the most important ways to kind of guard yourself is be really physically aware of how you are feeling in the interaction, because you're as you're listening and you're interacting and you're asking questions, you're going to start feeling certain things that are going to give you signals that this is going sideways, this is not feeling quite right. Always pay attention to those signals when they happen. They kind of let you know whether or not it's time to kind of start pulling it back, or listen more, or ask more questions, or make more empathic statements. Because when we make more empathic statements and label what the other person is experiencing or what we think they're experiencing, it actually changes what they are experiencing. It actually lowers the intensity of the emotion that they're presenting.
So this is powerful. Like being empathetic has the quality and it leaves you as a leader or anyone listening to another capable of diffusing and even disengaging the limbic system in someone's brain and therefore de-escalate the whole thing. Like really create the space to engage in a real conversation at the conscious prefrontal cortex level of the brain.
Mm-hmm. It certainly does. And that is really that's the superpower. We talked about how powerful it can be to be empathetic, and that is the superpower of it is, in 20 plus years of crisis assessment, intervention, negotiation, the key there is even the sound of your voice labeling how someone's perspective is. We see people begin to simmer down and kind of calm down, and that changes the whole dynamic. You have to be patient, and recognize what's going on, not try to push for a solution, too quickly, but you listen, you stay curious, you label the emotion, and then things that their brain literally begins to change, and they're being heard, they're being understood, and then they're being more open to then what you have going on, what you have to say.
Yeah, you said something, Keith, that points to perhaps the next conversation because time's running out, right? You said
Right.
brain literally begins to change, pointing
Right.
to something that that is essential, right? Like when people get listened this way with someone who's intentionally being empathetic, they're literally growing a new brain right there in front of you, right? So, Jill, come back in and say what you just said, man. That is so powerful.
Yeah, well, I just got this from Keith though, so I'll take the credit, but I'll give it to Keith. Well, I'll take the acknowledgement, but I give the credit to Keith rather say. Well, what I was hearing in the conversation was this two worlds that I find often in the background of most leaders and teams, which is this struggle between being assertive, empathetic, and without wanting to become dismissive. And what I find is that most of us confuse assertiveness with dismissiveness, and we hide ourselves from this how do I call this word of being assertive. The notion of I'm being assertive, I hide myself behind that notion when I am truly being dismissive. And so I liked what I was hearing, and assertiveness and dismissiveness are separated by a single thread, empathy.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I love what I was hearing in today's conversation.
Thank you for creating that, Giovanni. And it gives me this to say, which is I hide behind my quote unquote desire or need to be assertive because I'm really challenged by being empathetic. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, this is it. We're 5 minutes over, maybe, but it was well worth it. Keith, I look forward to being in conversation with you again. Thank you for being here. Do you have a final word for the world?
Well, just go back to the very beginning, or two words, actually, if I may.
Yes.
Be curious.
These are the perfect two words. And we might actually add them to our tenets. They're already in there. So we'll end the way we usually end. This is your Daily Huddle, folks. Thank you, Keith, for creating it for us inside of the question, what is an empathetic mindset? And we're blessed for it. The world is blessed for your presence and your contribution. So, folks, go forth. Make it a great weekend. And it will be great if you practice our 8 tenets. The first one is to love. Go out this weekend and purposefully, intentionally love yourself and love others. Look toward and in the direction of the people you may be dismissing. Love them. Laugh out loud. I know a guy named Michael Jordan who would laugh out loud even when he's in position where to laugh. Eat mostly plant-based. Stress less. Life is not that long, folks. It can go away in a blink. Enjoy it. Enjoy it by giving. This is our next tenet. Enjoy it by sleeping at least 7 hours. And enjoy it by moving your body. And last but not least, check your assumptions. Just when you think what you're entertaining may be the truth, it may be the thing that keeps you stuck. Check your assumptions. This is your Daily Huddle. We are here live every weekday morning from 9 a.m. to 9:30-ish a.m. And we stream live on YouTube, and we are a podcast on all the places where you get your favorite podcast. Tune in onto the Daily Huddle. We'll see you Monday morning, bright and early, right here. Until then.